The National Association of Criminal Defense Attorneys, the NACDL, is celebrating its 50th anniversary here in New York, and we're happy to be joined today by some leading attorneys to discuss some of the biggest legal issues. Next up is public defense. The law says we all have a right to an attorney, and joining me now to discuss that are the past president of the NACDL, John Henry Hinkson III, the president-elect of the NACDL, John Wesley Hall, who is author of Professional Responsibility in Criminal Defense Practice, and Malia Brink, NACDL's Indigent Defense Counsel. Thank you all for being with us. And Malia, let me ask you first of all, and this is sort of just a broad question about why it's so important that, in fact, everybody does get a defense and that there is a strong cadre of, in fact, public defenders across the country.
It's critical that everybody gets a lawyer because law is a technical practice. You wouldn't want to go into surgery and not have a doctor with you, and being in court is sort of the same thing. Understanding the elements of proof, you need a lawyer with you. It's important that everybody be provided a lawyer because fundamentally, not everybody can afford one. Depending on what you're charged with, it may be incredibly expensive to get a lawyer. It's very important that the state provide counsel for everyone who can't afford it, who's charged with a crime.
Now, John, one of the things that I've noticed that, of course, the budgets are tough all across the country when it comes to law, whether it's the district attorney's office or the public defender's office. But frequently, the public defender seems to be where the cuts happen first. What is the condition right now of public defense in the country?
Well, like any other agency in government, you see cuts because of tax reductions, because they know tax revenues are going to go down. And when they do, for instance, as it happened in Chicago last year, it was a 10% across the board cut. And they were equal opportunity there. They were going to cut everybody, including the jail, public defenders, prosecutors, and then everybody rallied to try and protect their stake in the criminal justice system. And the public defenders, I think, actually came out stronger, except for maybe the jail guards, because when the public defender system backs up and slows down, then the jail fills. And when the jail fills, in some places it costs $50 a day per inmate. And Chicago has 10,000 to 12,000 people in custody in any one time in pretrial incarceration. That's a phenomenal cost per day for incarceration. And the amount spent on a public defender to help move those cases through to conclusion, to speed up the process, saves everybody money in the long run.
Now, John Henry Hinkson, what is the situation as far as we know about Chicago? In fact, it's my understanding that in one case, we believe that somebody was actually kept in county jail for years because they couldn't get a proper defense. Is that happening across the country? Are people, is it that delayed?
Well, the whole system is bogged down as a result of lack of adequate funding. But the place where the rubber meets the road, defense counsel, is the place where the greatest injustices occur. You don't have to love lawyers, and you don't have to love people that are accused of crime to be foursquare behind adequate funding of indigent defense, because Americans do not want innocent people convicted. They do not want people to be railroaded by a justice system where one of the cogs is broken. And the cog of indigent defense is under severe stress now. It's not popular to be behind indigent defense at the public expense, but it is just.
And Malia, what are some of the consequences that we're seeing in the real world? Chicago's been pointed at as one of the most difficult places. What are the real world consequences, not only for the defendants who don't have the money, but also for society in general?
It fundamentally has a major impact on the reliability of our criminal justice system, and that's probably our biggest concern. You mentioned Chicago. Some of the misdemeanor lawyers in Chicago handle 1,600 cases a year. That's several a day that they have to get and close to make that number, 4 or 5 cases a day. And that's just not possible to adequately talk to your client, research the case. These are meet and plead cases. People are just getting thrown through the system with no regard to whether they actually did the crime or not, whether they actually understand the consequences of their plea or not. And it's very detrimental to the system. You're spending lots of money on jails, but more importantly, you're spending lots of money to convict people who may or may not be guilty, while real perpetrators may be going free.
So the solution to all this, I mean, unfortunately, the solution seems to be just more money, and that's a problem, right? I mean, it's difficult to do that.
it's not necessarily the only solution. States like Massachusetts have explored decriminalization of low-level offenses. You can have programs that help people charged with crimes get into treatment rather than go directly to jail, and perhaps drop charges like conditional dismissals if they successfully complete that treatment. There are cheaper ways to address these problems without having to overfund the criminal justice system.
All right. And thank you all for joining us. And thank you so much for being with us, and congratulations on your 50th anniversary celebration. That's it for this week's Law and Justice webcast. I'm Jim Avila. Thanks for joining us. You can see more on these and other stories on the law page and abcnews.com. And if you have stories you think we should know about, just send us a note on the contact page, abcnews.com/thelaw. And we'll see you next time.